أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So inshallah we're going to continue with Shamail, Muhammad, the portrait of perfection, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we're on chapter 3 now. So if you want to put the date, and the title is the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, hair. So Anas ibn Malik said the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam hair would reach midway between his ears. Sayyidina Aisha mentioned that Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his hair, that it was higher than shoulder length and less than earlobe length. And the next hadith is from Hani bint Abi Talib. She was the full sister of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, so the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. She said the Messenger of Allah ﷺ once arrived in Mecca and he had 4 braids. Ibn Abbas later, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used to let his hair hang in front where the polytheists would paw. So first, for the Prophet, his hair, it was long. Naturally, he would keep it long. It was up to shoulder or earlobe length. And in the narration, he mentioned that he had one when he at the conquest of Mecca, he had 4 braids, and he would. It wasn't the common habit the scholars mentioned, right? So they would braid their hair usually whilst traveling, because on a long journey, if the hair is loose, then you could get lots of dust and sand and everything. So the scholars mentioned one of the reasons why they would braid their hair is to protect from the dust and sand and things like that. The other miracles is worth noting is that it is said that Prophet ﷺ, his hair, once it grew to a certain length, it would stop growing basically. So it would grow roughly to his shoulder length, and then it would stop growing. And the reason why it's mentioned, that scholars mentioned that Prophet ﷺ, he didn't normally cut his hair like we do after a few months or a few weeks. He would normally, Prophet ﷺ, cut his hair at the time of Hajj or Umrah, which is one of the ritual of the Hajj or Umrah. And the Sahabas, what they would do, right, once the hair of someone was cut, they would whoever was present at that time, they would take the hair of the Prophet ﷺ, and they would use it as a form of shifa. They would put in water, and they would drink the water if they were sick or ill. And some of them, like Khalid ibn Walid, would place the hair of the Prophet ﷺ in his turban whilst fighting in battle. It was as a form of like a wasila basically. And some of the Sahabas, they also had their hair with them for a long time, and before they passed away, they made a request that they be buried with the hair of the Prophet ﷺ by placing it on either on their eyebrow or inside of their shroud or on their lip or something like that. You will come across reports where people will have hair of the Prophet ﷺ, and you might be wondering, how is that possible? One of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ is that his hair, normal people's hair, once we cut it right, it stops growing and normally decays as well. But with the hair of the Prophet ﷺ, it doesn't happen. It continues to grow and it continues to split as well. It's mentioned that his hair would split, so from one hair you would have 2, and then from 2 to 4, like that. So if somebody was to have a hair of the Prophet ﷺ and it split after some time, then they could give the other one as a gift to somebody else. And that's how we have so many hairs out there. And if you come across anybody who has a hair of the Prophet ﷺ, make sure that you don't show any form of disrespect, because whether or not we can verify that information or not, chances are it could be true that the hair is the hair of the Prophet ﷺ. If not, then it doesn't matter. But our sort of attitude should be, we should be showing respect and honor and veneration anything related to Prophet ﷺ, because everything about him was special and unique, including his hair as well. And the next hadith is so the next chapter we're moving on is chapter 4, is called the Messenger of Allah's combing of his hair, and he's wearing a headcloth. So the first hadith is from Anas ibn Malik, who said the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used to frequently apply oil to his head and comb his beard, and he would frequently wear a headcloth, kina, so much so that his clothing would be like that of an oil seller. So the first one is Prophet he would apply oil, and in the different narrations, I think he mentioned that he would apply olive oil. So after Prophet he washed his hair, he would apply olive oil. And one of the way to apply olive oil out to your shoulders is that after you've had a shower or a bath, you get some oil and you put it on your palm of your on your left hand, and then with your index finger you sort of rub it, and then first you place it on your right eyebrow and then the left eyebrow. Then you get some more oil and then you place it all over rub it all over your hair and your beard as well if you have a beard. And then if you want to apply more oil to your body as well. And olive oil is very good and beneficial for skin, and he had many benefits as well. And then Prophet he would wear a turban as well, like a piece of cloth, like a turban over his head, and because he applied so much oil, the cloth, it would get wet, soaking wet. It would absorb some of the oil, and they would notice that as well. Sayyidina Aisha said, Messenger of Allah used to love beginning with the right side in his purification, when he would purify himself, in his combing, when he combed, and in wearing shoes, when he would put on his shoes. So this is something that when we do wudu, for instance, we start with our right side. When you put your shoes on, socks on, you should start with your right side. When you put your clothes on, start with your right arm as well. So anything good, right, you should be starting with the right side, including even brushing your hair, combing your hair. You should start with the right side. And Imam Abu Hanifa, he mentioned that when he would go to get his hair cut, he would ask the barber to start with the right side. So it's important to try and remember that we start everything with the right side, except for instance, going to the toilet. Abdullah ibn Mughaffal said, Messenger of Allah used to prohibited the combing of one's hair except every so often. One of the men from the Prophet's companion radiallahu anhu ajma'in relates that the Prophet would comb his hair every so often. So the other aspect of miracle of the Prophet was that his hair was normally neat and tidy. Even as a baby, it's mentioned that Abdullah, his uncle Abbas said that he remembers that Prophet's hair was neat and tidy, like almost like comb basically. So Prophet, his hair was naturally tidy anyway, but he would comb his hair every so often. And so it's not like on a regular basis. And this is for the men. For the ladies, it's mentioned that they could comb their hairs often as they like to keep it neat and tidy. But for the men, we should try and comb it every so often. It's not good to comb too many times. So with that, we're going to stop. May Allah SWT give us the tawfiq to practice some of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and put the love of the Prophet into our heart. Ameen.